Good morning, it's Andy with Mountain Computers. Today is September 23rd. It's a Monday. I think it's Monday. And, let's see. I'm looking on the server. Yep, September 23rd, Monday, 2019. So anyhow, we have been off the air for 3 weeks. Basically working and writing and programming. I've done some programming in the past 2 or 3 weeks. It has nothing to do with my computer work. It has everything to do with graphics. I took a tour down memory lane about some of the graphics programming I had done back in the late 90s, mid 90s, and I brought some of that old thinking back online, and I wrote some amazing programs and functional routines using some of the simple to advanced mathematics, specifically with kaleidoscopes, Mandelbrot, trigonometry. I mean, it was a good exercise. I mean, I had to go back to one of my books that I bought back in 1991 called Graphics for Computer Gurus, or graphics. It was graphics programming for computer gurus, and it's an amazing book. It was about that thick. And I read it cover to cover, wrote some amazing software back in the day. Brought that back online in the past couple weeks. So I finished writing some amazing code, so I'll post that to my blog. Probably in the next day or two. I'll package it up. I mean, I want to incentivize it and monetize it, but sometimes you have to just open source it, let it go. Sort of like my internet programming tools that I do for scanning the internet. So anyhow. What's today's letter? Today's letter is M, and the letters that we've already done are C, S, G, and B. Now that sounds funny because, like on Wheel of Fortune, the final puzzle is R, S, T, L, N, E or something like that, and then the 3 more consonants in a vowel is like C, D, M, E or C, D, M, A. So anyhow, we're going to go through the alphabet. I'm going to go through each letter. And for some reason I chose M today because over the weekend I migrated a bunch of systems, and we ran into some problems with some of the data copying. Some of the tools we're using, they didn't work right, and they were supposed to. So I started the migration, looked good. 8 hours later, date and time on the folder syncs didn't match up, so I had to start over. So M for migrating systems, M for money, and M to mitigate. Mitigate. So let me explain migrating systems. Migrating systems. Back in March through July 2016 and 2018, it seems to be those months that I do the most research prior to migrating any systems. Email servers, applications from on-premises servers to the cloud services like Azure, AWS, Google Cloud. When it comes to migrating systems, I migrated an email server, one of our legacy email servers, to the cloud, but it took me over a year of testing to find the right server. I mean, we looked at Dovecote. Dovecote, it's D-O-V-E-C-O-T. Very cool. Looked at HMail, very cool. We used to be on Post Office. I've done decades of Exchange. And web-based mail, not so, I don't like that so much. I like client-based email, like Thunderbird on top of something. We always use TLS 1.2 or higher. Back in the days when we just had POP and SMTP, port 25, 110. But then we got into encryption for PCI compliance and all sorts of other things. We migrated a lot of our applications. I migrated 41 applications in 6 months from domestic premises, 9 servers to a couple servers in the cloud. 41 applications. Once I got 1 or 2 applications into the cloud and I could test the security and viability, backups, restores, updates from my clients, I went ahead and moved the rest of the 39 applications in a series of weeks. And that worked out pretty good, but there were a lot of late night hours. But once we got into the cloud, all of our total cost of ownership of having servers local and having a $500 a month telecommunications bill. We bundled that all up and went into bi-directional gigabit connections versus 10 by 10, 20 by 20, 40, 50 by 50 symmetric EOC, Ethernet over copper. So migrating your systems, you have to plan ahead. It may take 6 months, it may take 3 months, it may take a year, but that's okay. Just remember, don't make migrations unless you consider all of the integration issues for your clients, for other vendors, for other systems, for security, for backups, for business continuity, disaster recovery, all those things, documentation, passwords, email systems, all those things have to be considered. I mean, one of the things that I do well is I'm pragmatic, I'm careful. When things crash, very responsive to recover. Always have a disaster recovery plan, always have a plan B for your data, a plan B for your communications, and have it tested. Know that it works. Have stuff in hand or that can be overnighted. You don't need to spend a bazillion dollars on some crazy overhead MSP solution. You can actually use some really off-the-shelf, good white box, black box vendor solutions. So, migrating systems. Oh, let me go back and tell you how I know how to migrate systems very well. Back in 7th grade, I worked with computer information systems out of Medford, Oregon, and one of the things that I watched was the migrations of their systems on teletype. And then I went over to our Southern Oregon State College, and this was in 8th, 9th, 10th grade. I watched how they migrated from System 5 Unix to some Harris 500s and 800s. Now, mind you, I was very young, but I already knew then COBOL and Fortran 77, and I already knew programming, and I was teaching classes and stuff. But it's just because, even being a farm boy, I knew how to move, just like cows from one field to another. You make sure the future field is set, and fencing, and water, and food, and access, and everything's taken care of. And then you open up the gate and you slowly move things through in a timely and orderly fashion. I mean, it's like an airport. I mean, you want to board the plane efficiently. You want to, deplane the aircraft efficiently. I mean, there's a lot of things that go on. You want efficient and effective operations, even those two words have been overused for over 20 years, effective and efficient. But I continue my migration of systems. I attended a Learning Tree International course in Los Angeles, California, near Manhattan Beach. And it was migrating legacy systems. And the only attendees were me from Microsoft, the U.S. Postal Service, the Navy, Department of Defense, and FedEx. UPS was there, I think. These major logistics organizations, major big iron systems. And Microsoft, we had some major legacy systems. I was actually responsible for maybe 4 or 5 major legacy systems. Taking that seminar, it was like a 2-week course. We got to learn from some of the people who had been doing legacy system migrations for 20 years prior to my age, and all the gotchas and how you have to, plan for it. So, anyhow, migrating systems. It's easy if you plan it correctly. You have to plan. The other thing you have to do is you have to communicate. You have to cover all your bases. If you go to a meeting and it's a sort of a project review meeting, if you don't know the answer to a question, just say you don't know the answer to the question and you'll get back to them. Now, if that is a meeting for approval of a project, make sure that the stakeholders understand that if a question comes up that is unforeseen, it's okay. You can table the decision process. You can table it and if it's a monthly meeting, that's fine. You can table things. But if it really comes down to a lot of funding, you would hope that those questions came up before the meeting and were answered. So everything is just sort of like on the consent agenda. Even if it's millions of dollars, you have to understand a lot of things that might surprise you shouldn't surprise you. If you know what you're doing, you should be able to just migrate systems, communicate with stakeholders before, during, and after. So anyhow, migrating systems is a lot of fun. I continued to do it. This last weekend I did 2 more systems, 2 more networks. Do I like it? Yeah. Do I like the results? Absolutely. The results are astounding. So anyhow, next thing, money. Let's talk about money for a second. If food, water, and shelter were free, we would be able to work on a lot of other things that don't take up a lot of our time to pay those things, food, water, and shelter. So when it comes to a business, let's talk about money. Cash flow, liquidity, debt, current ratio. I took an MBA refresher, sort of like test over the weekend. And 15 years ago I got my MBA. And this refresher taught me a lot of the words and phraseology that I had forgotten, but I just know because I do it so much all the time with all of my business stuff already with clients and my own businesses. So all I can say is when it comes down to income statement, balance sheet, I use the profit and loss, P&L, a lot more than people realize. The income statement, that's great at sort of a higher level, and balance sheet, that's good at a high level. But your P&L, that's sort of like 2,000 feet to 20,000 feet in altitude versus 200 feet. You're watching your daily transactions and all that stuff. The bean counters, that which needs to be done. But when it comes to money, you need liquidity, cash flow, lines of credit. You need to make sure that all your people, your burden rate, your burn rate of money, your growth rate of, your interest rate swaps. I mean, there's a lot of stuff when it comes to money. There's people in real estate that are like, oh yeah, we're so smart, but they're, they have their forte. There's so many ways you can package money. There's so many ways you can look at money. But really, when it comes down to the end of the day, are you in the black or are you in the red? Are you in the black and improving, or are you in the red not improving? I mean, Thomas Cook, an airline that just had a major faux pas over the weekend, but it's been coming for a long time that I didn't realize. But that airline industry, oh my God, that's one of the most amazing airlines. I mean, it's sort of like Reno Air, sort of like a PSA, Pacific, Southwest, Western Air. There's a couple of companies that got Reno Air. I think Western Air got sucked up by US Air, and then I don't know, when you think about companies and stability. I mean, even look at our company. We're stable. We've gone through a lot of gyrations, maybe 3 or 4 in the past 15 years, but we've come out on the other end, and people that have been with us are better off for it. Some people stayed flat, some people improved, some people just changed gears. But when it comes to money, people like to get paid. People like to make sure that they don't have too many, their taxes aren't that high. Your debt is going away. Your your investments and all those things are doing well. So just keep an eye out on your money. Mitigate. Let's talk about the legal things that we have to understand when you run a business and you work with clients. Why mitigate? If you ever get in a jam, what's important is that it was not willful. It wasn't consciously, yeah, I'm going to try and get away with something. When you mitigate an issue, either as a third party, or you're in the direct line of fire, you have to understand that, did you actually do something and you're guilty for it? What were you willful? Were you trying to get away with something? And it's important that a lot of companies that I help, that's one of the questions I ask them. I said, like for us, we don't do anything willfully, intentionally to get around things. I mean, you just take the high road. Ethics 101. Do the right thing. Will you make mistakes? Yes. Will people try and stack the cards against you? Yes, that's competition. That's unethical behavior by other players and actors. However, you can protect yourself with some basic legal understanding. 1, always work in good faith. 2, be reasonable and prudent. Be consistent. no intent to harm. Understand discovery. Understand pro se. Understand amicus brief. Understand that there's a lot of people out there that have some people working for them that might not be totally on board and trying to steal, leverage, take over, things like that. If you love what you do the right thing. You'll get paid, rewarded, no matter what. What's important is that when it comes down to mitigating issues, I mean, look at ombudsman, the consumer advocate departments, the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Elizabeth Warren did that thing. That's cool. I didn't know that, but when I found out she did, but basically, she just put her name on something that came out of the mortgage crisis. Look at all of the major scandals that are going on today, as well as the past 50 years. Mitigation, litigation, how do you avoid, how do you abrogate things? It's important to have good legal counsel, but it's also good to have a good head on your shoulders. Wise man once said, one keeps one's own counsel. That means you know the answer, even though you're asking somebody else for their opinion on the answer. However, sometimes if you get in a jam, it's better to just sort of, it might be okay to take the hit if the hit is cheaper than trying to win something where the system is against you. So if the system is designed like mass incarceration in the legal system that we have today, the system has unlimited resources and can bind you and take away your resources to protect yourself and defend yourself. The innocent until proven guilty is not necessarily true, even though we have that in our laws and our Constitution. However, the system is designed against that. So it's sometimes good to better not fight the system, but to work through the system as a good player and good business person. So anyhow, this is it. Andy from Mountain Computers. We got calls coming in. I better get going. So anyhow, give me your advice, like, share, and subscribe, and give us a call. Thanks. Bye-bye.